And now Daniel Ellsberg is saying that Barack Obama should be impeached for signing the National Defense Authorization Act. You know, Ellsberg, Pentagon Papers. That was the, in case you've forgotten, the documents that revealed secret information regarding our involvement in Vietnam decades before American troops were sent to die there. And it was known officially as United States-Vietnam Relations 1945 to 1967, a study prepared by the Department of Defense, end quote. And as pointed out the other day, yesterday, I think, in Natural News Online, the papers served as the first in a series of revelations that disillusioned tens of millions of Americans for decades. And at the time, Vietnam was being blamed or scapegoated for most of what many Americans thought ailed the country. So to find out their government had been involved in the Southeast Asian nation for decades before the war began was devastating to people who were able to think back in the mid-'60s. I'm not talking about the right-wingers. The right-wingers love death and blood and destruction and conquest, or what appears to be conquest to them. But rational people in this country were just freaking out. I mean, like, what? I remember there was a drive in this country back in '67 to collect blood donations for the Viet Cong. And I can remember how the establishment in this country went absolutely bonkers, giving aid and comfort to the enemy. Your human blood, you're going to give them blood? Of course, I don't know how the blood would have made it to Southeast Asia in any kind of shape that made it still deliverable. God, why am I bringing this up? Because the man who revealed what we did and the lies and deceptions and murder we committed in Vietnam is now stating for Democracy Now! And a few other sources that, yes, Obama should be impeached.
You're listening to 960 KNEW and online at 960KNEW.com.
So, here we are. Daniel Ellsberg, who, the Pentagon Papers, the whistleblowing that he did that revealed what our real goal was in Vietnam. It was 40 years ago. Jesus God. More than 40 years ago. Woodward and Bernstein brought down Nixon by exposing the Watergate scandal. But Ellsberg leaked the Pentagon Papers. And what Ellsberg is talking about now is that provision of the NDAA that allows the military to indefinitely detain anyone, even remotely suspected of being a terrorist, quote, with no jury, no trial, no legal representation, and not even any requirement that the government produce evidence against the accused. Now, a federal judge, Catherine Force of the Southern District of New York, struck down the indefinite detention provision, ruling that it most likely violates the First and Fifth Amendments. But President Obama ordered his Justice Department to quickly appeal that ruling, saying that the 2012 NDAA merely reinstates an existing statute giving the U.S. military the power of infinite detention. And, of course, Ellsberg begs to differ. In the interview with Democracy Now!, he says that as an American citizen, he's, his word, whipsawed by what he is doing, but understands it must be done. He says, on the one hand, I'm here to attend the court hearing at the circuit court, at the federal court building, where I expect to see the Obama administration cover itself with shame in arguing that an American citizen can be detained indefinitely in military custody without charge, indefinitely, violating really the core principles of law that go back to the 13th century English, the Magna Carta. On the other hand, he says, I was up late last night reading Judge Forrest's 112-page document. I have to say that at the end of that, the judgment granting an injunction saying that these provisions of the law that will be argued and defended shamefully by the Obama administration and by 3 U.S. senators who will be claiming that the detention is constitutional, well, her argument was that it was facially unconstitutional on its face. Ellsberg went on to say that after he read her detailed ruling, he felt pride as an American because of what she said. This is ridiculous. She didn't say that. I'm saying that. Ellsberg didn't say it. I'm saying it. Ellsberg did say, quote, I thought this is the American citizen that I fought for as a Marine, the judge. Yeah, Ellsberg was a Marine. This is a constitutional order, a rule of law, a judge appointed by Obama who's willing to say that her boss was mistaken in claiming that this rule is compatible with our rule of law, end quote. Ellsberg went on to say that Obama, like this freakish Professor John Yoo of Berkeley, who authored the memos during the Bush administration authorizing torture, quote, Obama has to be seen as either a rotten constitutional lawyer or a man who, like you, believes that the Constitution simply does not bound an American prisoner in any way in an indefinite law of torture. And he goes on, and either way, I believe we have here impeachable offenses by all of the people arguing this case, including the 3 senators, McCain and the others, who will be arguing on this. We should be looking at Brennan, Obama's nominee to head the CIA, and the other people connected with the torture program, not in terms of confirmation hearings, but in terms of impeachment hearings and convictions. Ellsberg added, the indefinite detention provision is, quote, unprecedented, but as a practice, what we've seen for the last 10 years is a systematic assault on the Constitution of the United States in every aspect. In the aspects of the illegal surveillance, the warrantless surveillance, which was conducted against me 40 years ago by President Nixon and led to his impeachment proceedings, but is now regarded as legal. That's the way the law has changed. End quote. Daniel Ellsberg. Now, I don't know about you, Truth Seeker. I'm old enough to remember the court case that the New York Times was threatened with everything short of utter destruction by the Nixon administration if they went ahead and published the Pentagon Papers, and they did, and then the Washington Post followed suit. But I remember this, seriously, not as though it were yesterday, but as though it were, in the recent past. And most of us back then had a Mount Everest of respect for what Ellsberg did. And now he's calling for the impeachment of Barack Obama. We'll be right back.